At the family dinner, Dad yelled, "Your job is trash, you're a good-for-nothing." So My name is Catalina, I'm 34 years old, and my job is to create dreams for others. At this very moment, that dream was a luxury destination-style wedding at a spectacular hacienda on the outskirts of Tequila. The air smelled of cooked agave and panic. No, the floral arch goes over there, where the afternoon sun hits. I yelled over the noise of the mariachis tuning up. My walkie-talkie crackled. My linen shirt was stuck to my back with sweat. It was 4 p.m., the guests were arriving in an hour, and the lighting provider had just told me that one of their trucks had broken down. Chaos. But it was my chaos, and I was the fucking master of this chaos. I ran towards the main kitchen, dodging waiters, and solved the truck problem with 3 quick calls and a couple of veiled threats. The mother of the bride, a woman dressed to the nines who had probably never broken a sweat in her life, stopped me. "Catalina, dear," she said with barely concealed tension, "are you sure the Egyptian linen napkins are the right shade of ivory?" I smiled at her. A trained smile, the kind that can tame wild beasts. "Absolutely. It's champagne ivory. It perfectly matches the Juliet roses in the centerpieces." She nodded, satisfied, and walked away. I slipped into the wine cellar to take a breath for a second. The smell of damp earth and oak was my only refuge. I pulled out my phone, 100 new emails and 2 text messages. The first was from the father of the bride, Catalina. "My daughter is crying with happiness. She says this is more than she ever dreamed of. We have no words. Thank you." I smiled, for real this time. This was the why. This was the rush. Then I saw the second message. It was from my mother, Graciela. "Mija, don't forget about the mortgage this Friday, and your brother Dante says he needs a little extra this month. You know how startups are. Nada, hello, nada, how are you? Just the order." The smile vanished from my face. You see, in my family, I'm the good-for-nothing. I'm the invisible daughter, the one who arranges little flowers and organizes little parties. I'm not Dante, the tech genius in Monterey. I'm not Renata, the brilliant lawyer at the most prestigious firm in Guadalajara. I'm just Catalina, the one with a job that, according to my father Fermin, isn't a real job. Ironically, that not a real job was the secret financial pillar holding up my family's house of cards, but they didn't see it, or didn't want to see it. I stared at my mother's message. I felt the exhaustion of the week hit me all at once. I remembered something. I was 10 years old. I had won first place in the school's art competition. A charcoal drawing of the Guadalajara Cathedral. I ran home with the blue ribbon in my hand, my heart pounding. Dad was in his study, reading the newspaper. Dad, look. I won. I said, holding out the certificate. He glanced at it over his glasses. Ah, that's nice, Mija, very nice. He went back to his paper. Hey, Dante, he yelled down the hall. Congratulations on that A in math. Now that's my son. Pure intelligence. I crumpled the certificate in my hand. I learned that day that my achievements were worthless. Drawings, parties, dreams, that was all trash. Only numbers, titles, and status mattered. And so, at 34, I was still pathetically trying to get my father to look at me the way he looked at Dante. I was still paying for an approval that would never come. My walkie-talkie crackled, pulling me out of my reverie. Catalina, the bride and groom are ready for photos. I put my phone away. I replied to my mother's message. Of course, Mom. Don't worry. And I went back to the chaos. It was time to create another dream while mine remained on hold. My parents' house in Chapultepec is beautiful. It's one of those old, remodeled mansions with high ceilings, original mosaic floors, and an inner courtyard that looks like it's straight out of a magazine. It's the perfect image of Guadalajara success. It's the house I was paying for. My family fit perfectly into this stage set. My father, Fermin, was the head of the family, an old-school macho man, obsessed with appearances and what people would say. He spent his days reading the financial newspaper, even though his own consulting business barely covered his personal expenses. His real job was managing the imaginary achievements of his star children. My mother, Graciela, was his silent accomplice, a woman who had once been beautiful and now clung to that beauty with everything she had. She spent her mornings at the golf club not playing, but at luncheons, gossiping and showing off. She was the one who always threw the most venomous barbs, wrapped in a sweet smile. "Oh, Mija, you look so tired," she would tell me. "That job of yours, running around in the sun, it doesn't suit you. You should see Renata, always so impeccable." Ah, Renata. My older sister, the perfect lawyer. She worked for the most prestigious firm in the city, or so she said. Her life was a parade of expensive tailored suits, designer bags, and photos at the trendiest restaurants in Andars. What no one knew was that her ridiculously expensive master's degree from abroad had been paid for by me. And the down payment on her BMW 3 Series, the one she boasted about as a performance bonus, had also come from my account. Renata was an expert at living a lifestyle she couldn't afford, knowing I would always be there to cover her overdraft. And then there was Dante, the firstborn, the genius, my father's pride. Dante lived in Monterey, working on his umpteenth tech startup. He was the classic guy who used words like disruption, blockchain, and synergy in every sentence. My father talked about him as if he were the next Mark Zuckerberg. The reality was that Dante was a bottomless pit. His big ideas always ended in spectacular bankruptcies. And guess who paid off the angry investors or covered his corporate credit card debts? "It's an investment, Kata," he would tell me over the phone, with that spoiled child's voice he never lost. "We're about to hit it big. I just need a little more cash to stay afloat." And I, the fool, gave it to him. I was the little party planner. My job, though successful and demanding, was seen as something minor, something for women, something frivolous. It didn't matter that I managed multi-million peso budgets, had 20 people reporting to me, or dealt with clients who could destroy a career with a single tweet. To them, I just arranged flowers. That evening, after the wedding in Tequila, I arrived at my small, rented apartment in the Colonia Americana. It was nice, but it was a rental. I couldn't buy anything because all my extra money went to the house in Chapultepec, Renata's BMW, or Dante's venture fund. I took off my shoes, feeling the ache in my feet. I checked my bank account. The invoice for the wedding had been paid a large deposit. I saw the money and felt no joy. I felt the weight of the next request. I calculated how much Graciela would need for the mortgage and Dante's extra. I would have just enough left to cover my own expenses. I sat on the couch, exhausted. My phone rang. It was a video call from Renata. "Hey, little sis," she said, her perfectly made-up face filling the screen. She was at a bar with a glass of wine in her hand. "Hey, guess what? I saw some incredible shoes. Remember the ones I told you about? They're on sale. Do you think, Renata, I'm exhausted? I just finished an 18-hour event." She pouted. "Oh, so grumpy. Well, anyway. I'll send you the link. Please. It's just that my card won't go through." She hung up before I could answer. I opened the link. The shoes cost 15,000 pesos. I closed my eyes. When had I become this family's personal ATM? The door to my apartment opened. It was Bruno, my fiancé, the one light in my life. Bruno was a high school history teacher. He didn't make millions. He wasn't a tech visionary or a prestigious lawyer. He was simply a good, intelligent man, and most importantly, he saw me. He truly saw me. He found me on the couch, phone in hand, staring at the link to Renata's shoes. "Tough day, huh, my love," he said, sitting beside me and starting to massage my shoulders. I let out a groan of relief. "You have no idea. And to top it off, Renata wants 15,000 peso shoes." Bruno stopped massaging. His expression hardened. "Are you serious? After you paid for her car insurance last month? She says her card won't go through." "Of course it won't go through, because she lives like a millionaire on your money." Bruno stood up, his usual calm broken by frustration. It was a fight we had often. "Catalina, you have to understand, this isn't support, it's abuse. We're saving every penny for a down payment on our apartment while you're paying the mortgage on a house that isn't even yours. It's my family, Bruno. It's complicated." "Complicated? No, Catalina, it's fucking simple. They're using you. Your father humiliates you, your mother bleeds you dry, and your siblings see you as their personal investment fund. When are you going to stop it? When are you going to choose yourself?" I hated when he was right. It hurt because I knew every word was true. It's the culture, Bruno. We're supposed to take care of our parents. Take care of them, or support 3 functional adults who refuse to live within their means. Your father calls you a failure while sipping on expensive tequila that you paid for. Open your eyes, for God's sake. I stayed silent. I hated fighting with him more than anything, because he was fighting for me. My phone rang again. I saw the name on the screen and felt an immediate sense of relief. "It's my grandpa," I told Bruno, my voice softening. Bruno nodded, his anger dissipating. He adored my grandfather. I answered. "How are you, Catalina, Mija? How's life treating you?" The voice of Don Anselmo, my maternal grandfather, always sounded like a hug. He lived alone in Tequila, in the house where my mother grew up. He was a wise man of few, but very direct, words. "Well, working a lot, Grandpa, as always. And have those vultures called to ask for money yet?" My grandfather was the only one who knew the truth. Not all of it, but enough. He had seen how Graciela, his own daughter, manipulated me. Mom called about the mortgage. And Dante needs extra. I heard Don Anselmo sigh. "Mija, I've told you 1,000 times. They're going to bleed you dry. Those people are insatiable. I raised your mother to be strong, not a freeloader. And look what she's become, playing along with that clown of a father of yours." "Dad's not a clown, Grandpa. No, he's worse. He's an arrogant man who would rather humiliate his most hard-working daughter than admit his geniuses are a pair of useless bums. Be careful, Catalina. Be very careful." "I know, Grandpa. I know. Well, I'll let you go. I just called to say hi. And remember what you're worth, Mija. Don't let them treat you like you're less." "Thanks, Grandpa. I love you." I hung up. Bruno wrapped his arms around me. "He's right, you know." I nodded, resting my head on his chest. "I know. But how do I stop it, Bruno?" "How?" A couple of weeks later, everything changed. Or at least, I thought it did. I was in my office, a small rented house in Colonia Lafayette that we had turned into my company's headquarters. We were in the middle of planning the annual gala for a huge pharmaceutical company, a contract that had taken us months to secure. My boss, an incredible woman named Ines, called me into her office. "Catalina, close the door," she said with a seriousness that made my blood run cold. I swallowed hard. Shit, what did I do wrong? The wedding client complained. The ivory napkins. Sit down. I sat, my hands sweating. Ines stared at me and then burst out laughing. "Oh my God, you should see your face. Relax, you're not fired." I let out a breath. Ines, you nearly gave me a heart attack. I wanted it to be dramatic, she said, smiling. She leaned over her desk. Catalina, I've watched you work your ass off for 5 years. You've made this company grow. You handle clients I wouldn't have the patience for, and your events are flawless. So, I talked to the partners. She slid an envelope across the desk. Congratulations, Catalina. As of the 1st of next month, you are our new director of operations. I opened the envelope. My eyes widened. The title was impressive, but the new salary was nearly double what I was currently making. Ines, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Just keep doing what you do. You've earned it. I left her office floating. Director of Operations. A 6-figure salary. The first thing I thought was, now. Now my father will have to respect me. This is a real title. I called Bruno, screaming with excitement. He screamed with me. That's incredible, my love. We have to celebrate tonight. I told him, but wait, I have another idea. That night, Bruno took me to a small, romantic restaurant in Tlaquepaque for dinner. We were drinking wine, talking about what we would do with the money. We could finally buy our apartment. That's when he said, well, I have some news too. He went pale. Are you okay? I asked. Catalina, he said, his voice trembling slightly. We've been through so much, and I've watched you fight against. Well, you know. And I don't want to spend another day without being the man who reminds you how incredible you are every morning. He got down on one knee in the middle of the restaurant, pulling out a small box. Catalina, will you marry me? The people around us applauded. I was crying. Yes, of course, yes, Bruno. It was a simple white gold ring with a small but brilliant diamond. It was perfect. It was ours. That night at home, I couldn't sleep from happiness. I had a promotion, I had a fiancé. My life was finally taking shape. And then I had the most stupid, hopeful idea of my life. This Sunday is the family dinner, I said to Bruno. I'm going to tell them everything. The promotion and about us. Bruno tensed. Cat, are you sure? You know what they're like. It'll be different this time, I assured him, more to myself than to him. It's a director title, Bruno. And I'm engaged. They have to be happy for me. But I wanted to do something more. I wanted a peace offering, a reminder that despite everything, we were a family. I spent the next few days on a secret mission. I searched through old albums until I found a photo. It was from 15 years ago, from a vacation in Puerto Vallarta. We were all there, younger, happier. Even Fermin was smiling genuinely. I contacted a digital artist and commissioned a large, idealized digital oil painting based on that photo, framed in heavy, dark wood. It cost me a fortune, money I should have been saving for the down payment. It's my last try, I confessed to Bruno when the huge, heavy package arrived. A last try for what, Catalina? To buy their love. To remind them that we're a family, I said stubbornly. Bruno sighed. Just be prepared. In case they don't react the way you expect. They will, I said, convinced. This time will be different. Oh, how naive I was. How painfully naive. Sunday arrived. It was pouring in Guadalajara, one of those summer storms that flood the streets in minutes. Bruno and I loaded the gift, wrapped in elegant gold paper, into the trunk of his car. I was nervous but excited. I had dressed up more than usual. A nice dress, makeup, the engagement ring sparkling on my finger. We arrived at the house in Chapultepec. The atmosphere, as always, was tense. You could cut it with a knife. Classical music played too loudly. The smell of cochinita pibil, which my mother certainly hadn't cooked but had catered, filled the air. We found the family in the main living room. Fermin was on the phone, yelling at who I assumed was one of his clients. Of course. My son Dante's vision is global. Those Monterey investors don't know what they have, he shouted, gesturing with his glass of whiskey. Graciela and Renata were on the sofa, looking at a society magazine. Oh, look at Consuelo's daughter, my mother said with disdain. Did you see the dress she wore? How embarrassing. You can tell she has no class. Renata laughed. Awful. Hey, Mom, do you think my car looks good parked out front? Bruno and I stood in the doorway. Good evening, I said, my voice sounding small. Graciela looked up without smiling. Ah, Catalina. You're late. Dinner is almost ready. Fermin ignored us, continuing his call. I brought you a gift, I said, as Bruno struggled to get the wrapped painting through the door. Renata raised an eyebrow. A gift? It's not your birthday, Dad. It's for the family, I said. Bruno leaned it against the wall. Nervously, I began to tear off the gold paper. The portrait was revealed. The idealized image of our family on the beach. Silence. Graciela walked closer, narrowing her eyes. Oh, a painting. What a nice thought, Mija. She turned towards the kitchen. Rosa, serve dinner now. Mom, wait. It's very nice, Mija, she said in the tone she used to speak to small children. But I don't know where we'll put it. All this modern stuff doesn't go with the decor anymore. Just leave it over there in the corner. We'll figure it out later. Over there in the corner was next to the service door, near where they put the trash can to be taken out. Fermin finally hung up the phone. He walked past the painting without a second glance. Wasting money on paintings, he muttered, just loud enough for me to hear. You should learn to save like your sister Renata. She knows how to invest. A chill went down my spine. Invest? Renata? If only he knew. Bruno squeezed my hand so hard it almost hurt. His jaw was tight. Let's go, Cat, he whispered in my ear. Please, let's just go. No, I whispered back, my voice trembling with stubbornness. I haven't told them my news yet. Dinner. We'll wait for dinner. Bruno looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I was. We sat at the table. The painting, my multi-thousand peso peace offering, remained leaning in the dark corner, ignored. Exactly like me. Dinner was, as always, the Dante and Renata show. Fermin poured the Winnie an expensive one I had likely paid for on the last grocery bill and raised his glass. I'd like to propose a toast, he announced, his voice echoing in the dining room. To my two eldest children. To Dante, who is revolutionizing the tech industry in Monterey, and to my daughter Renata, the best and most relentless lawyer in Guadalajara. To the winners of this family. Cheers. Graciela and Renata chorused. Dante, who had decided to honor us with his presence this weekend, barely looked up from his phone. Thanks, Dad. Cheers. Bruno and I clinked our glasses in silence. Winners. The word tasted like poison. Tell them, Dante. Tell them about the new investment round, Fermin insisted. Dante sighed as if it were a chore. Well, we're looking to raise $5 million. It's a complicated deal, but the American investors are very interested in the Mexican market. It's pure disruption, Dad. $5 million. Graciela exclaimed, clapping softly. How incredible. Did you hear that, Catalina? $5 million. I nodded, forcing a smile. Impressive, Dante. What I didn't say was, how many of those $5 million are you going to ask me for when the Americans back out? Renata wasn't to be outdone. Well, I'm about to close the Puerta de Hierro land case. A multi-million peso dispute. The senior partner told me that if I win, my name will be known throughout the state. That's my girl. Fermin roared proudly. Renata then looked at me with that condescending smirk I hated so much. And you, Kat? Still busy with napkins and centerpieces? Lots of little quinceanera parties this month. The whole table chuckled. Graciela, Fermin, even Dante. I felt small, humiliated. It was their running joke. The little party planner. Before I could respond, Bruno spoke. His voice was low, dangerous. Actually, Renata, that napkin job pays for the BMW you drive. Or did you forget? The silence was absolute. Renata went pale, then red with rage. Graciela gasped, offended. Fermin scowled. I kicked Bruno under the table. He was ruining my plan. I still had my news to share. What the hell is wrong with you, you idiot? Renata spat. Bruno, please. Apologize, Graciela said. Apologize for what? Bruno said firmly, looking at all of them. I won't apologize for telling the truth. You've all spent years treating Catalina like she's less when she's the only 1 inch. Bruno, shut up, please. I interrupted him, my voice high with panic. Not now. He looked at me, his eyes full of pain and frustration. Pain for me. Fine, Catalina, he said through clenched teeth. Whatever you want. An awkward silence fell. Fermin glared at Bruno and me with absolute contempt. The mood was ruined. It was now or never. I had to fix it. I had to give them my good news so they could see that I was a winner too. I swallowed. The mole was stuck in my throat. My hands were trembling under the table. I could feel Fermin's furious gaze, Renata's scorn, and Bruno's disappointment. Family, I said, my voice barely a whisper. No one paid attention. Fermin started talking to Dante about stocks. Family. I said, louder. They turned to look at me, annoyed by the interruption. Excuse me. I also wanted to share something important. The silence returned, but this time it was a heavy, hostile silence. Well, today at work, I cleared my throat. They just promoted me. As of next month, I'm the new director of operations for the company. I waited. For a smile, congratulations, something. Nothing. Renata literally yawned. Dante went back to his phone. Graciela stared at her plate. And? Fermin said impatiently. Is that all? No, that's not all, I said, feeling frustrated, tears stinging my eyes. I gathered my strength. It's a huge step. It's a director-level position, Dad. With a very good salary. And then I brought out the heavy artillery, the news that had to matter to them. And there's something else. Bruno and I held up my left hand, the light from the chandelier catching the small diamond. We're getting married. Dead silence. A silence that lasted an eternity. I could hear the rain lashing against the windows. Renata was the first to react. She let out a laugh. Not a chuckle, but a sharp, mocking cackle. Marry you? Oh, Bruno, you really won the reverse lottery. Graciela smiled that smile of hers, that smug smirk I hated, looking at Fermin as if they shared a private joke. But it was Fermin who dropped the bomb. He put down his silverware slowly. He stared at me. His eyes were cold, filled with a contempt he didn't try to hide. Director, he said, his voice dangerously quiet. Director of what? The waiters and the florists. Don't make me laugh, Catalina. He leaned forward over the table. And then he slammed his fist on the wood. Bam! The plates jumped. Graciela flinched. Your job is trash, he screamed, his face red. Trash, do you understand? It's a job for servants, for uneducated people. Fermin, please, Graciela began, not to defend me, but to quiet the scene. You shut up, he snapped at her. He turned back to me, his index finger pointed at me like a gun. I am sick of your foolishness, of your little parties and your ridiculous dreams. At this table sit winners. Dante is a visionary. Renata is a winner. They are the pride of this family. My stomach clenched. Bruno started to get up, but I put my hand on his arm. Fermin laughed, a dry, humorless laugh. And you? What are you, Catalina? I'll tell you what you are. You're a nuisance. You're an embarrassment. You are a good-for-nothing. That's what you are. A zero. A zero on the left. A good-for-nothing. The phrase echoed in my ears. It wasn't the first time I'd thought he felt it, but it was the first time he'd said it out loud. I looked around the table. Dante was still on his phone, though now with a small smirk. Renata was looking at me with pure venom, enjoying the show. And my mother, Graciela, she was looking at my father with admiration. Proud of her macho. The world stopped. I felt a wave of shame so intense I almost threw up. My first instinct was to apologize. Apologize for what? For existing. For breathing their air. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to list every sacrifice, every paid bill, every sleepless night. I wanted to scream at Bruno that he was right, that they were monsters. But I didn't do any of that. Something inside me, something that had been cracked for 20 years, finally turned to dust. It shattered. The stupid, pathetic hope that one day my father would see me, that my mother would defend me, that my siblings would respect me died. It died right there, between the half-eaten plates and the smell of cochinita pibil. And in the moment that hope died, something else was born. I stopped trembling. The heat of shame was replaced by an icy cold, a terrifying calm. I looked up and saw them. I truly saw them for the first time. Not as my family, but as what they were, an arrogant bully, a pathetic accomplice, a jealous viper, and a useless, spoiled child. And then I did the one thing they didn't expect. I smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It wasn't a forced smile. It was a slow, deliberate, almost amused smile. It started at the corner of my lips and spread to my eyes. A smile that said, I get it now. I saw Graciela's smug smile freeze. I saw Renata's mockery turn to confusion. I saw Fermin's fury falter for a second, replaced by bewilderment. The silence in the dining room was total, broken only by the sound of the rain outside. Very slowly, without saying a word, I folded my cloth napkin, the good one, the one they only used for special occasions, and placed it next to my plate. I pushed my chair back. The sound of the wood scraping against the mosaic floor was obscenely loud. I stood up. Bruno was on his feet immediately beside me, his face a mask of contained rage, ready for war. What? What are you doing? Graciela stammered. Where do you think you're going? Fermin yelled, regaining his composure. I'm not finished talking to you. I'm speaking to you. Sit down. I looked at him. I held his gaze, and my smile widened. This is so disrespectful. After everything we've given you. Ungrateful, he continued to scream. I grabbed my purse from the back of the chair. I took Bruno's hand. Catalina, I'm warning you, Fermin threatened, rising from his chair. I didn't turn back. We walked towards the front door. I could feel their 4 pairs of eyes drilling into my back. I opened the door. The cool, damp air of the storm hit my face. It smelled of wet earth, of ozone, of freedom. We walked out. I pulled the door shut behind me. The solid, heavy, final sound of the wood clicking into its frame was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard in my life. The Zero had just left the building. What a story, right? We're only halfway through. If you're enjoying it, if you're feeling Catalina's courage, please give this video a like. It costs you nothing and helps us a lot. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Do it right now. Oh, and leave me a comment telling me what city or country you're listening from. I love reading where in the world you're from. Every comment helps this story reach more people. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support. And now, let's continue with the story because what's coming next? Oh, what's coming next is the best part. We got into Bruno's car. The rain hammered against the windshield. For a minute, the only sounds were the rhythmic thud of the wipers and our ragged breathing. Bruno slammed his hand on the steering wheel. Hard. Assholes. I hate them. I swear to God, I hate them, he seethed, trembling with rage. How dare they? How dare he speak to you like that? And your mother, your sister. They're monsters. I, on the other hand, was terrifyingly calm. The cold I had felt in the dining room had settled in my chest. There was no more pain, no more sadness, just absolute clarity. You're right, I said, my voice sounding strange and flat. What? I'm right? Of course I'm right. I should have punched your father and your sister in the no, I interrupted. Give me your phone. He looked at me, confused. What? I took out my own phone. My hands weren't shaking. I opened my banking app, the one I use to manage everyone's money. Catalina, what are you doing? This isn't the time, shoo, watch. I went to scheduled transfers. There it was. Mortgage, Chapultepec house. Due date, first, amount, 30,000 Mexican pesos. Tab. Cancel recurring transfer. Confirm. See that, Bruno? He was staring at the screen, his eyes wide. Next. Investment, Dante. Due date, 5th, amount, 25,000 Mexican pesos. Tab. Cancel recurring transfer. Confirm. Next. I went to my credit card app. I looked for the additional cards on my account. There she was. Renata last name. Credit limit, 150,000 Mexican pesos. Current balance, 142,800 Mexican pesos. Tab. Block card. Reason, theft or loss. I smiled as I selected that one. Confirm. Cat, Bruno whispered, now more amazed than angry. I closed the banking app. I opened WhatsApp. I went into the family last name group. The last message was from Graciela, a picture of the cochinita pibble from a few hours ago. I typed a new message. Short. Precise. The money has run out. Good luck. I hit send. And then I turned my phone off completely. The click of the screen going black felt final. Done, I said. What? What did you just do, Catalina? I looked at him, and for the first time in hours, my cold smile became a real one. Tired, but real. I just quit, my love. Start the car. The engine roared to life. Now, I said, putting the car in drive, let's go to dinner. We have an engagement to celebrate. Bruno was silent for a second, processing the magnitude of what he had just witnessed. Then he let out a laugh, a loud, liberating laugh that filled the car. You are incredible, Catalina. You are fucking incredible. Hell yes. Let's celebrate. He cranked up the music, and we drove out into the rainy Guadalajara night, leaving behind a house that was about to implode. I slept that night like I hadn't slept in years. I slept deeply, dreamlessly, without the usual 3 a.m. anxiety about bills and requests. Bruno held me all night as if he was afraid I would break, but I wasn't broken. I was whole. The next morning, I woke with the sun. Bruno was still asleep. I went to the kitchen and started the coffee maker. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled our small apartment. Only then, as the coffee dripped, did I grab my phone, which had been dead in my purse all night. I plugged it in and turned it on. It was glorious. The phone vibrated so violently on the kitchen counter it almost fell off. It was an avalanche. A tsunami of digital hysteria. The lock screen was unreadable, a cascade of notifications. 42 missed calls from Mom Graciela. The first at 10:30 p.m. last night. Where did you go? Ungrateful. The last at 6:58 a.m. this morning. Answer me, Catalina, for the love of God. 10 missed calls from Dad Fermin. All in the early hours, between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. 5 missed calls from Renata Viper. Yes, that's how I had her saved. 3 missed calls from Dante Leach. And the messages. Dozens of WhatsApp messages. I opened Fermin's first. They had gone from anger to confusion to panic. 2:15 a.m., answer the phone right now, Catalina. 2:30 a.m., what does that mean? The money has run out. Don't play games with me, girl. 2:45 a.m., your sister's card isn't working. Fix it. 3 a.m., Catalina, I'm serious. Call the house. And then, the star message, the one I would frame if I could. At 3:15 a.m. A single word. Please. From my father. From Fermin, the man who had never asked for anything in his life, only demanded. Please. I savored that word. Then I read my mother's, a litany of emotional blackmail. 11 p.m., I can't believe your disrespect. Your father is furious. 1 a.m., why did you turn off your phone? How childish. 3:30 a.m., Catalina, Mija, answer. Your father is very nervous about the bank. 5 a.m., the mortgage payment. Catalina, you didn't make it. It's going to bounce. 6:30 a.m., for the love of God, daughter. Call me. You're going to give us a heart attack. And Renata's. Pure fury. 12:30 a.m., what the __ did you do to my card? I'm stranded at a bar. Answer, you idiot. 2 a.m., you are going to pay for this humiliation, Catalina. I poured myself a strong, black coffee. I looked at the screen, the avalanche of hysteria. I breathed in the coffee's aroma. I played a voicemail from Graciela. Her voice was shrill, hysterical, on the verge of tears. Catalina, it's your mother. You have to call me. The bank, the mortgage. Your father. I don't know what to do. Please, my little girl, please. I deleted the message without finishing it. I went back to the chat with Fermin. To his, please. I typed my reply. 4 words. The 0 is busy. Send. I put my phone on, do not disturb. I took my coffee mug and sat on the balcony to watch the sunrise. It felt good. Bruno woke up an hour later to the smell of coffee. He came out to the balcony, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Good morning, Director of Operations, he whispered in my ear. Good morning, future husband, I replied, leaning back against him. How did you sleep? Like a dead baby, I joked. The phone? A symphony of panic, I said, taking a sip of coffee. It was beautiful. He laughed. I knew you were tough, but I didn't know you were this tough. I'm impressed, and a little scared. I'm just getting warmed up, I said. I have one last thing to do. He let go of me. More. What are you going to do? Justice, I said. I went inside and sat down at my laptop. Bruno followed, curious. I thought you cut everything off, he said. I cut off the cash flow. Now I'm cutting off the flow of lies. I opened my email, my finance folders, years and years of organization. I was, after all, a planner. I composed a new email. I addressed it to Fermin, Graciela, Dante, and Renata. I CC'd Don Anselmo. Subject, Family Audit, Account Closure. And then I started attaching files. Dear family, I wrote. Given that my contributions seem to have been underestimated, I have taken the liberty of preparing a financial summary of my activities as the good for nothing over the last 5 years. For your reference, Attachment 1, mortgage_Chapultepec_2019-2024.pdf, for mom and dad. Here are the receipts for the 30,000 Mexican pesos monthly mortgage payments for the house you live in. Total for the last 5 years, 1,800,000 Mexican pesos. Attachment 2, hospital_bill_Xavier.pdf, for dad. Here is the 150,000 Mexican pesos bill from your emergency bypass surgery last year. The one your fantastic insurance didn't cover. Total, 150,000 Mexican pesos. Attachment 3, masters_tuition_Renata.pdf and BMW_downpayment.pdf, for Renata. Here is the proof of the 200,000 Mexican pesos transfer for your master's degree at ITEM and the receipt for the 120,000 Mexican pesos down payment on your BMW that you were going to pay me back for, and curiously forgot. Total, 320,000 Mexican pesos. Attachment 4, transfers_Dante_LLC.xls, for Dante. Here is a detailed spreadsheet of the investments I have made in your last 3 brilliant ideas that went bankrupt. The total comes to 500,000 Mexican pesos, and that's not including interest. I stopped. I looked at the numbers. The grand total was disgusting. Almost 3 million pesos. Grand total of my uselessness over the last 5 years, 2,770,000 Mexican pesos. Since, according to Fermin, my job is trash and I am a zero, I have decided that this trash will no longer finance your lifestyles. The bank has your number. Dante's investors have his. And Renata, well, I guess those shoes will have to wait. Welcome to the real world. This zero quits. Sincerely, Catalina, Director of Operations and former ATM. I looked at Bruno. He was pale, reading over my shoulder. My God, Catalina, he whispered. I had no idea it was that much. Neither did I admitted, seeing it all together. I hit send. Then I opened WhatsApp. I went to the family group and selected leave group. I blocked Fermin's number. I blocked Graciela's number. I blocked Renata's number. I blocked Dante's number. My phone went silent. A wonderful, absolute silence. Done, I said, closing the laptop. Now it's over. Not even 5 minutes had passed when my phone rang. It was the only number I hadn't blocked. Don Anselmo. I answered. Catalina, he yelled, and I had to pull the phone away from my ear. He wasn't angry, he was euphoric. I just read the email. Ha! Family audit. You are brilliant, Mija. Brilliant. I laughed, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. Hi, Grandpa. You liked it? Liked it? I loved it. I'm printing out those files, Mija, I'm going to frame them. Almost 3 million pesos. No wonder that idiot Fermin was always so proud. Grandpa, don't tell me, don't. I just hung up with them. I called them as soon as I read your email. What? You talked to them? Of course. Someone had to rub salt in the wound. I sat down, fascinated. And? What happened? What did they say? Chaos, Mija. Utter chaos. Pardon my French. It was a madhouse. I called the house phone. Graciela answered crying like a baby. Papa, Catalina is and I didn't let her finish. I could picture the scene. My grandfather with his booming rancher's voice, taking control. I told her, shut your mouth, Graciela. I just saw the numbers. You should be ashamed. No, worse. You should be on your knees thanking that girl for not letting you get kicked out of that house 5 years ago. I couldn't stop laughing. Then Fermin got on the phone. My grandpa continued, excited. He started yelling at me that I didn't understand honor, that it was a family matter. And I told him, honor? Do you even know what that word means, you shameless freeloader? You live off your daughter, treat her like garbage, humiliate her in front of everyone while stuffing her money in your pocket. You're a parasite, Fermin. A kept man. Oh my God, Grandpa. But that's not the best part. While I was yelling at him, I could hear Renata and Dante fighting in the background. They were screaming at each other about who had gotten more money. Renata was yelling at Dante that his startups were a fraud, and Dante was yelling back that at least he didn't spend it on stupid shoes. And Graciela just crying and screaming that the family was falling apart. Ha! They're like vultures fighting over a carcass that just died on them. The image was so vivid, so pathetic, that my laughter died down. What happened then? I asked. Well, I told them one last thing, my grandpa said, his voice turning serious. I said, listen to me, you useless bunch. Catalina is done. You broke her, and now you have to deal with it. Let's see how you pay your debts now. Don't call me. My only granddaughter is Catalina. And I hung up on them. I was silent. Thank you, Grandpa. For defending me. No, Mija. Thank you for defending yourself. It took you a while, but you did it. I am so proud of you, Catalina. Now go and live your life. They don't exist anymore. I hung up the phone. Bruno was looking at me with an admiration I'd never seen before. Your grandfather is my new hero, he said. Mine too, I replied, feeling like the war was finally over. And I had won. 2 weeks passed. 2 glorious weeks of silence. Bruno and I started looking at venues for our wedding. We decided on something small but beautiful, and for the first time, I was using my money for my dreams. My phone stayed on, do not disturb, but I checked the blocked calls every now and then, just for fun. They had slowed to a trickle. The initial rage was turning into a sullen silence. We were leaving a beautiful garden in Tlajomulco when my phone rang. An unknown number. I normally wouldn't answer, but something told me to. Hello. I said cautiously. Catalina? Catalina, please, don't hang up. The voice was unmistakable. Renata. But it wasn't the mocking, arrogant Renata. This was a hysterical Renata, crying so hard I could barely understand her. How did you get this number? I asked coldly. I begged a cousin. Catalina, you have to help me. Please, please, sister. Hearing her name, Bruno stopped and looked at me, frowning. I put the call on speaker. Help you with what, Renata? I thought I was a zero. What help can I give you? Don't say that. I was joking. You know how Dad is. Catalina, please, the bank. They took my BMW. Ah, consequence number 1. They repossessed it this morning, Catalina. In front of my office. The tow truck came and just took it. I didn't make the payment. I thought you thought what, Renata? That I would keep paying for your luxuries while you call me a little party planner? No, it was a mistake. I swear. But you don't understand, that's not the worst part. Her crying intensified. What's the worst part, Renata? Did you break a nail? They fired me. That did surprise me. What? You got fired? Why? Because of the car scandal. The firm's partners saw the whole thing from their windows. They said it was unacceptable, that it gave an image of insolvency. And before that, I lost the Puerta de Hierro client. Which client? I asked, though I already knew. The big one, the one I told you about. The client wanted. You know. Attentions. Expensive dinners, gifts, and I had no way to pay for it. My card, the one you cancelled, wouldn't go through. Wow. So her legal brilliance depended on my credit card. Catalina, I'm ruined. I have no job, no car, I have a huge debt on my credit card, and my apartment rent is due next week. I have no money, Cat. I'm going to be homeless. Please. Just a little, just for the rent. I'll pay you back, I swear. I listened to her plea, the real desperation in her voice, and I felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just emptiness. What a shame, sister, I said, my voice as calm as a frozen lake. What? What a shame. Yes. What a shame that you have to learn to live on your own salary. Or in this case, your lack of one. But Catalina, I'm your sister. And I'm a good-for-nothing. And good-for-nothings don't have money. Goodbye, Renata. I hung up. And just in case, I blocked the unknown number. Bruno looked at me. Wow. What a shame, sister. I'm a quick learner, I said. We got in the car and never spoke of it again. The next bomb didn't take long to explode. A week later, I was coming home from work. It was almost 8 p.m., Bruno wasn't home yet. I saw a man sitting on the steps of my building, smoking. His head was in his hands. I thought he was a homeless person. Excuse me, can I help you? I said, fumbling for my keys. The man looked up. My blood ran cold. It was Dante. But it wasn't the cocky Dante from Monterey. This man was gaunt. He had dark circles that reached halfway down his face, a scraggly beard, and was wearing the same clothes he'd probably had on for 3 days. He smelled of alcohol and desperation. Catalina, he said, jumping up. Dante? What are you doing here? You ruined me, he screamed, his voice cracking. You destroyed my life, you bitch. I didn't do anything, Dante. I just stopped paying for it. You don't understand. It wasn't just my startup. It was company money. I stood frozen. What? What are you talking about? I had I the Ahole. A small embezzlement. I had taken money from a company project to cover my startup's losses. I was going to put it back as soon as the investment round closed. But I needed your investment to keep up appearances. My God. He wasn't just useless, he was a criminal. When you cut off the money, everything fell apart. I couldn't pay the suppliers. They started investigating. They found the embezzlement. Catalina, they fired me. And they're going to press charges. He came closer, his eyes bloodshot. They're going to put me in jail, Catalina. All because of you. My fault. You're the one who stole the money, Dante. It was a loan. And you forced me to. If you had just kept giving me the cash, how much? I asked. What? How much do you need? A spark of hope flickered in his eyes. 1 million. 1 million pesos. By yesterday. With that, I can negotiate, pay them back, avoid jail. I laughed. I couldn't help it. 1 million pesos. And why on earth would I give it to you? Because I'm your brother. And if you don't, I'll say you were my accomplice. That you were laundering the money. He got closer. So you better, Catalina. He tried to grab my arm. Get your hands off her, you asshole. Bruno's voice boomed down the hallway. I hadn't heard him arrive. In a flash, Bruno was between me and Dante, shoving him against the wall. Get the hell out of here, Dante. Bruno yelled, his face inches from my brother's. Or I swear I will call the police right now and tell them all about your embezzlement and your threats. Dante, who had always been a coward, shrank. He saw we weren't bluffing. You'll both pay for this, he hissed, grabbing his backpack from the floor. This isn't over. He ran out of the building, stumbling on his way out. Bruno hugged me. I was shaking, not from fear, but from disgust. Are you okay, my love? Yes, I said, my voice firm. Lock the door, Bruno. And let's get a camera. The family genius was a fugitive thief. This was getting better and better. The final blow came a month after the dinner. The nail in the family's coffin. I was in a meeting at my office. My assistant came in, looking pale. Catalina, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a man in the lobby. He says he's your father, and he's making a scene. My heart stopped. Fermin. Here. Excuse me for a moment, I told my team. I walked out to the lobby, and the spectacle was worse than I had imagined. My father, Fermin, was there, disheveled, his tie crooked and his eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, and he was screaming. Where is Catalina? I know you're in here. Come out right now. The young receptionist was cowering behind her desk. 2 security guards were trying to calm him down. Sir, please, you need to calm down or we'll have to ask you to leave, one of the guards said. Don't touch me. I'm her father. I have a right to see her. That traitorous bitch. My colleagues started peeking out of their offices. The humiliation was instant, my face burning. This was my father, the man obsessed with, what people will say, making the biggest fool of himself. Dad, I said, my voice surprisingly firm. He spun around. When he saw me, his face contorted with rage. There you are, he roared, pointing at me. You ruined us. You ruined yourself, Fermin, I said, using his first name for the first time in my life. We got the letter from the bank, he screamed, pulling a crumpled paper from his jacket. The final notice. Foreclosure. They're going to take the house. Our house. My house, you mean? The one I paid for 5 years. It's your obligation. You're our daughter. And now, because of your stupid tantrum, your mother and I are going to be homeless. Is that what you wanted? To see your parents without a roof over their heads? He moved toward me, menacingly. The guard stepped between us. Get out of my way. She's my daughter. Dad, leave, I said, my voice ice cold. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself. You're the embarrassment. You and your piece of shit job. This is all your fault. Damn you, Catalina. Damn you, you traitor. He started to cry. Tears of rage, of self-pity, not of remorse. It was pathetic. Seeing this man, the patriarch who had terrified me my whole life, reduced to a screaming child in my office lobby, broke the last bond of fear I had for him. I no longer felt humiliation, or even anger. I felt pity. And then, relief. Guillermo, I said to the head of security. Please escort this man out of my office. And make sure he does not re-enter. You can't do this to me, Catalina. I'm your father. You will obey me. The guards took him by the arms. He struggled. Let me go. Catalina. They dragged him out of the building, his screams echoing off the marble. I walked back into the conference room. My colleague stared at me, horrified. "I apologize," I said, smoothing down my skirt. "A family matter." Now, where were we? That day, Fermin lost his house. But I finally got my life back. The fear was gone for good. 6 months passed. 6 months of an almost unknown peace. Of course, the incident at the office was a scandal. The gossip flew. People looked at me with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. I realized that even though I loved my job, that place would always be tainted by the memory of my father screaming in the lobby. So, 2 weeks after that day, I resigned. My boss, Ines, was incredible. "Catalina, you don't have to do this because of what happened." "That man is I know," I interrupted. "And thank you, Ines. But I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it for me. It's time to start from zero." She smiled. "Well, if that's your decision, I just want you to know that if you ever need a partner or an investor, you call me." I left with my head held high. Bruno and I made a radical decision. We pooled my savings which, now that I wasn't supporting 4 other people, had grown exponentially, and Bruno's talent for administration and history. He was a genius at organizing logistics. We opened our own event planning company. It was terrifying. We invested everything we had. We rented a small office in Colonia Providencia. We were trying to come up with a name. Brilliant Events, Guadalajara Luxury Weddings, it all sounded generic. It was Bruno who suggested it, with a mischievous grin. "How about Evento Zero?" he said. "Event Zero." I froze. And then I burst out laughing. It was brilliant. It was ironic. It was bold. And it was our personal brand. Evento Zero, I repeated. I love it. It's a reminder of where I came from, and what I'm worth. The business took off faster than we ever dreamed. It turned out my reputation for impeccable professionalism was stronger than the family gossip. Clients from my old job started seeking me out. Referrals poured in. Within 6 months, we had to hire 3 people. With our first big paycheck, Bruno and I did what we had dreamed of for years. We left our small rented apartment. We didn't buy in Chapultepec. We bought a spectacular brand new penthouse in the Andars area, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a terrace that overlooked the entire city. It was our sanctuary. Our first night there, we were unpacking boxes, we ordered pizza, and sat on the marble floor drinking cheap champagne from plastic cups. "Congratulations, Director of Operations of your own company," Bruno said, raising his cup. "Congratulations, my love," I replied. We did it. We watched the lights of Guadalajara spread out below us. It was $1 million view, and it was ours. Paid for by us. No debts, no vultures. The only connection I kept with my past was Don Anselmo. We talked every week. His health had become more fragile, and he could no longer travel from Tequila to visit us. I told him about Evento Zero. He laughed so hard he almost choked. "That's my granddaughter," he said. Using their insults as fuel. "Bravo, Mija." I sent him pictures of the penthouse, of our new offices, of Bruno painting the walls. One day, I received a package by courier. It was a small, heavy box, sent from Tequila. I opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter in my grandfather's shaky but firm handwriting. "My daughter," it began. "I am so proud of you, it doesn't fit in my chest. I always knew you were the strongest of them all. I watched them eat you alive and I bit my tongue not to interfere, praying that one day you would wake up. And boy, did you wake up. You caused an earthquake. I know your health is good now, your financial health, but an old man like me knows a little help is never a bad thing, especially when you're starting something new. Your grandmother, may she rest in peace, and I always knew what kind of Well, what kind of person our daughter Graciela was. We always knew Fermin was a blowhard. So since the day you were born, we saved something for you. Money we never told anyone about, not even your mother. It was your escape fund, in case you ever needed it. And I think now is the time. Under the letter was a bank passbook, from an old savings account at the local bank in Tequila. I opened it. The balance took my breath away. Years and years of small deposits, of compound interest. There was a considerable amount, enough to run Evento Cero for a full year without a single client. It's not much, Mija, the letter ended. But it's yours. Clean money. Use it to build the empire of my favorite Zero. Keep shining. I love you. Your admiring grandfather, Anselmo. I sat on the floor of my penthouse, the passbook in my hand, and I cried. I cried for the first time since that dinner. But they weren't tears of sadness or anger. They were tears of gratitude, of validation. It wasn't about the money. It was because someone had seen me. Someone had always known. Someone had been quietly keeping a safety net for me for 34 years. I called Bruno, who was at the office. I couldn't speak, just sobbed into the phone. Cat. What's wrong? Are you okay? I'm on my way. I'm perfect, I managed to say. It's just that my grandpa. Bruno, my grandpa is an angel. That night, we transferred the money. Not to spend it, but to have it. It was our fuck you fund, our freedom fund. The only real inheritance I would ever receive. We decided our wedding wouldn't be in Guadalajara. We didn't want any shadows from the past. Bruno and I had always dreamed of visiting Valle de Guadalupe, the wine region in Baja California. What if we get married there? I proposed one night. A destination wedding? Bruno said, smiling. Well, we are supposed to be the experts, aren't we? I laughed. We used the money from Don Anselmo, not because we needed it, but because we wanted him to be a part of it. We planned everything in 3 months. It wasn't an event for 500 people. It was an intimate ceremony for 30, our closest friends, my former boss Ines, and no one else. Well, almost no one. The guest of honor was Don Anselmo. His health was too fragile for a commercial flight. So we chartered a private medical transport service, a small air ambulance with a nurse that flew him from Guadalajara to Tijuana, and then a comfortable ground ambulance to Ensenada. Bruno took care of everything. Your grandfather is walking you down that aisle, Catalina, even if I have to carry him myself, he told me. The wedding day was magical. The sun was setting over the vineyards, painting the hills purple and orange. We were at a small boutique winery, with string lights hung between the olive trees. Bruno was waiting for me at the makeshift altar, more handsome than ever in a linen suit. The music began to play, and then I saw him. My grandfather, Don Anselmo, in a wheelchair, pushed by the nurse, but dressed in his best charro suit, the one he wore for big occasions. I stopped in front of him. His eyes were watery. Mija, he said, his voice trembling. You look like a queen. Thanks to you, Grandpa. Thank you for being here. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The nurse stepped aside. I took the handles of the wheelchair, and I walked towards my future, pushing the only man who had ever truly been a father to me. When we reached the altar, Bruno shook my grandfather's hand. Don Anselmo took my hand and Bruno's, joining them together. You were never a zero, Catalina, he whispered, making sure I heard him. To me, you were always number one. The only one who counted. I kissed his forehead, tears streaming down my makeup. I love you, Grandpa. And you, my queen. Now go be happy. You've earned it. He gave me to Bruno. And as we said our vows, with the Baja California sun disappearing into the Pacific, I knew Don Anselmo was right. My life was finally starting at number 1. It's been a year since the wedding. Evento Zero is a resounding success. We had to move to a bigger office. Bruno handles the finances like a master, and I create the magic. We've become the go-to company for luxury weddings in the region. Don Anselmo passed away 3 months ago, peacefully in his sleep. He left us his house in Tequila. We haven't decided what to do with it yet. It's too painful, but also too precious. I keep his letter and the passbook in my safe. My other family. Blocked, silenced, gone. But in a city like Guadalajara, gossip travels. I found out everything from a distant cousin I ran into at a coffee shop, one who never took sides. He told me the whole story. Fermin and Graciela lost the house in Chapultepec. Of course. The bank foreclosed. They had a pathetic garage sale, selling their luxury furniture for pennies. They now live in a small rented apartment in a working-class neighborhood, Miraval, far, far away from the glamour of Chapultepec. My cousin said Fermin is bitter, sick with diabetes, and barely speaks. Graciela, he said, aged 10 years in one. She finally looks her age. And with no money for her club luncheons, no one invites her anymore. Renata. Ah, Renata. She lost her job, yes, but it was worse. Unable to pay the massive debts on her credit cards, mine and hers, she declared bankruptcy. No prestigious law firm would hire her. She lost her status, her car, her apartment. My cousin says he saw her working as a paralegal at a small notary's office downtown. She earns minimum wage. The perfect lawyer now makes photocopies. And Dante, the genius. Just as Bruno threatened, the company in Monterrey pressed formal charges for fraud and embezzlement. But before they could arrest him, Dante disappeared. He crossed the border illegally into the United States. The last they heard, he was working under the table, washing dishes in a restaurant in Texas, on the run from the law in Mexico and from immigration in the U.S. I listened to all of this while sipping my latte. I felt no joy, no schadenfreude, no triumph. I felt nothing. They were the logical consequences of their own actions. They were stories about strangers I once knew. I paid the bill and left. That night, I was on the balcony of our penthouse. The air was cool. Bruno came out and hugged me from behind, placing his hands on my stomach. A stomach that was no longer flat. I'm 5 months pregnant. What are you thinking about, my love? He whispered. Nothing, I said. And it was true. The doctor said it's a girl, he smiled. I know. And she's going to be strong. And no one will ever call her a zero. I looked out at the lights of Guadalajara. My city. My life. I lost a family that called me a zero, but I built one where I am everything. Sometimes, cutting ties isn't cruelty, it's survival. It's the only way to heal. And I, Catalina, the little party planner, the trash, the good-for-nothing, am finally living. And I am healing. My old family lost everything because of their arrogance, and I found happiness, my own family, and success. But do you think I went too far by cutting off all contact? Or did I do the only thing I could to save myself? What would you have done in my place? Let me know your opinion in the comments. Thank you for listening to this story here on behalf of the channel. If it touched your heart or made you angry, please give us a like. It helps more than you can imagine. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any of the stories we have for you each week. Thank you for your support. See you in the next one.